Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Good News Conversations here on the Albuquerque Journal Podcast Network. I'm your host, Good News reporter Gino Gutierrez. Very pleased to be joined this week by Joe Fye, the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Roadrunner Food Bank. Joe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Gino.
And Joe, we're here as the ink is probably still drying on a very cool initiative that Roadrunner Food Bank just signed this week with the Mexican Food Banking Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that initiative and how the idea got started?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. We're calling it the International Food Exchange Project. And what it is it's a partnership between Roadrunner Food Bank here in New Mexico and BAMEX, which is the Bancos de Alimentos de Mexico, which is the Mexican food banks. They're an alliance of 55 food banks all over the country of Mexico. And what really this project is all about is about capturing food waste, getting food to food banks in Mexico and taking excess produce into the United States, into New Mexico to help feed community members who are food insecure here. In Mexico, a low-end estimate of agricultural waste is about 7 billion pounds of food, and there are challenges with infrastructure and transportation, logistics, to be able to capture that food waste and get it to folks, while it's still usable. So the idea is this is sort of the first step in a very unique agreement to start building partnerships and bringing in different stakeholders to help us in this work.
Yeah, and it's amazing too, Joe, because it's the first of its kind in the country. And it's kind of fitting that it should be New Mexico that is leading the way on this, especially considering not only geographically the relationship with Mexico, but just the cultural ties to it as well. And your guys' president and CEO, Dana Yost, he spoke on Tuesday when the agreement was signed, and he has a very intimate relationship with Mexican food banking, given his prior work in Arizona. I know we were touching on it a little bit before we came on here, but can you tell us how his relationship kind of led to this agreement coming in place?
Absolutely, yeah. As far as I understand, Dana spent at least the last 7 years building relationships. There's been a lot of food rescue that goes on when produce trucks cross the border through the Nogales port, and he was involved in a lot of that, rescuing loads of produce down there and helping connect them with food banks in Arizona and also regional food banks across the Southwest. I think over the course of time, as they learned more about where that produce came from, sort of food insecurity challenges in the country of Mexico, was forged an embryonic idea about, what can be done to address the problem of food insecurity and address the problem of food waste at the same time in some type of binational capacity.
Yeah, and it's all really aimed at helping secure and really save more of Mexican produce that I know Dana mentioned it. Most of it would just be staying in the ground in Mexico because it would have nowhere to go. I know you're really the head of the operations there on the Roadrunner side, but a lot of this agreement on Roadrunner's end is really kind of just offering logistical support where they can to help these Mexican food banks really help rescue more of this food.
Absolutely. There are several goals, right? We want to, a hungry child in Mexico, it's important to get them food just as much as a hungry child in New Mexico, right? We know the food is out there. So we want to build relationships and build connections to be able to capture that food. We want to be able to share best practices between our two food bank networks. There are probably unique things that are done through BAMEX that perhaps we could learn lessons from, and vice versa. And also, we want to really dive in further in addressing the issues of food waste. The history, if you look at the history of food banks in the country and Roadrunner specifically, our food bank was started by Reverend Titus Scholl. The first food distribution that was done was rescuing a truckload of corn, not a semi-truckload, but in the back of a pickup truck. So food waste is something that food banks have been intimately connected with for a long time. There are other entities trying to address it on a larger level, on a global level. The fact of the matter is there's enough food out there that people don't have to be food insecure, and we want to see what we can do to take it to the next level to make a bigger impact.
Yeah, and that seemed to really kind of be one of the key messages we heard on Tuesday. And I know when I spoke to Dana, he talked a lot about that. There's enough produce being grown in Mexico that there's no reason why there should be any families, Mexican or New Mexican, that are facing food insecurity. I'm curious on your end. This is such a unique program. When you first heard about it, what was your initial reaction?
I got really excited about it, right? I choose to serve at Roadrunner every day because of the mission and because of what we do. It's also very exciting to be a part of something new, right? And be a part of something that could have a huge impact and could potentially even be a model for other food banks. And not only bringing produce into New Mexico, but if we're able to really source to excess, it could increase sharing of produce throughout the food bank network in our country as well.
Yeah, and Joe, I'm kind of curious. So this whole program's about reducing food waste, helping Mexican farmers really get their produce out to those in need. But what did the environment in Mexico kind of look like? Well, let's take it back maybe like 5 years before this. All that food just went to waste?
Yes, absolutely, and it still does in some large part, right? If there's a contract that falls through, or if a grower's not able to move their product, oftentimes there simply isn't the labor or the logistics in place to be able to get that produce off the farm and into the hands of someone who can use it. There can also be issues in processing and packaging. There could be condition issues, like a crop is sort of grade B or has some kind of damage, right? And it doesn't end up in the market. And if it doesn't end up in the market, it doesn't make it into the donation stream in time. Of course, we both know fresh produce is highly perishable, right? So there's time is of the essence when doing food rescue. So
for this program, I know for you, you're really based a lot on the operational side of Roadrunner. For your part in this, what does that look like? How are you going to be working within the food exchange program?
Any way that I can. Right now we're really framing this, and we had a conversation with the folks at BAMX, about how this is really it's a journey, not a destination, right? Yeah. We're embarking on a project that's the first of its kind. In my current role, I could see myself working with our partners in Mexico, working internally with departments at Roadrunner, really doing anything I can to help facilitate the execution of different phases of this plan as it unfolds. Yeah, and that's something, it's funny you bring up the word journey, Joe, because it's something I heard through a lot of the conversations I had with officials, both from Roadrunner and from BAMX as well. This is kind of going to be a learning process as you guys kind of go along, kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I'm curious, what are you most looking forward to throughout this process, and what are you most excited about? Well, I think one really important milestone will be when we're able to make connections with farmers, which we have some relationships with them now that exist, but making connections with farmers, rescuing the first loads of produce, and being able to see that produce delivered to Mexican food banks and the excess coming across the border. I think that'll be a huge milestone in the project when we actually see sort of the idea behind the plan happen for the first time, right? Yeah, and it's cool. You brought up a really, really good point about that. And it's something for our readers who read the article, they'll know, but for our listeners here, the model is very unique because it benefits both sides of the border, benefits both organizations. I know the produce being rescued is going to have first priority going to Mexican food banks, but the excess is going to be coming to New Mexico to be distributed here for these families. It's really, to me, when Dana kind of explained it, he explained it as the cup and the saucer type of thing. The cup is the Mexican food banks, but any excess produce they have is going to spill into the saucer. It just seems like such a unique program that benefits both organizations. It really is honestly pretty ingenious, I thought, when I was walking away from it. Yeah, that was one of the really key components, is that it's not an extractive model. We don't want to take food out of Mexico, bypass food insecure people in the hunger relief network there, and bring it all over, right? We know that the waste numbers are so high that there's enough for everyone to be able to partake, right? So that was one important component. And another one is we don't want to monetize this stream of produce. We want to find out ways to engage agricultural producers, encourage donation of product, so that we don't create a secondary market for produce. Instead, we create a market for reducing food waste and encouraging sharing of the bounty for all. Yeah, and it's awesome to see that produce is going to remain where it was grown, but also benefit other families as well. After the signing ceremony was over on Tuesday, you were able to take some of the officials from Mexico on a tour of the warehouse. They were able to kind of see kind of the inner workings of Roadrunner and how you guys operate.
Just kind of curious. That tour, I went along with you guys for the majority of it, but to kind of see their eyes kind of widen a little bit when they were looking at bits and pieces of your guys' operation, just how important that is to understanding the working relationship you guys are going to have moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really a blast to engage with our partners in Mexico earlier this week. As far as I understand, I haven't gotten to, I haven't been able to visit any of the food banks in Mexico yet, but as I understand it, they're like us in that they do what we do, but there's a very broad range, sort of a spectrum of resources that are available, facilities that are available to do this work out of, right? And we're pretty blessed to have a large warehouse, a large fleet, equipment, steady inventory, things like that, and it was great getting to show them what we do and how we do it, and to sit for a while afterwards and answer questions and kind of talk about where we're going next.
Yeah, and I know we've mentioned it a couple times. This is the first kind of agreement of its kind in the country. You guys are going to be kind of learning as you go along, but there were already discussions on Tuesday of the possibility of this being the model moving forward for other international relationships. I'm sure you probably share that same hope as well.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm involved in food banking is my career choice, and to help further this mission to reduce food insecurity. So the idea that this could have an impact on the food banking network globally is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, and for our listeners at home, Joe, I kind of want to give you the opportunity for anybody interested in donating to Roadrunner Food Bank, because there is still a large majority of New Mexicans that are facing a food insecurity of some kind. How do they donate to you guys?
They can go to our website at rrfb.org. We encourage people that want to be involved in this work. You can give time, you can give food, you can make a monetary donation. So you can sign up for a volunteer shift on the website, you can drop food off in our lobby, or you can make a monetary gift. So
there's definitely plenty of ways for them to be able to donate to the cause. Joe, thank you so much for spending some time with me to talk about this amazing international initiative that Roadrunner Food Bank has started, and very interested to see where you guys go from here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, albuquerquejournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you content like this. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription, or go to www.albuquerquejournal.com/subscribe/ABQpods/ and enter the promo code ABQpods. This gets you a digital subscription to the newspaper for $3 per week, normally charged monthly at $12. That's a savings of $9. Thank you for joining us, and read, hear, and watch.